Hello and welcome to the Blue Mountain Shepherd. As you can see, it's a pretty snowy February the 3rd. Now we have a few wind advisories in effect tonight, so we'll probably be moving this video inside in a moment. But I have a couple of questions to discuss with you tonight. Is it possible to be angry and not sin? Or is it even right to be angry as a Christian? We'll discuss that and much more in a few moments. As you can see, we moved inside the office this evening because it's kind of nasty outside and the wind's blowing hard to keep the wind off the camera. But concerning the two questions, is it possible to be angry and not sin? And is it even right to be angry as a Christian? And many times we're taught at a young age that it's wrong to be angry at all as a Christian. But the important thing is, let's see what Scripture says. Let's start with Psalm 4 and verse 4. And this is just kind of a brief mentioning of anger in Psalms, and it's to kind of get us started about the subject. This is a Psalm of David, and in verse 4 he says, "Be angry and do not sin." This is at the first part of the verse. So the fact that he mentions it's interesting. Could it be possible, since it's mentioned in the Bible? And David tells us something about it. So to understand more, let's go to Ephesians chapter 4, and this gives us some more clues as to what to do with our anger and how it's possible. So this is Ephesians chapter 4, and it's verse 31. "Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice." Now, it's interesting that he mentions anger. Anger is one of the things he says to, and this is Paul, by the way, writing this, let all anger be put away from you. But I think, since anger is mentioned, the context clues are telling us the kind of anger that we should be watchful for. First of all, bitterness. What causes bitterness? An anger that lasts a long time. Maybe we may even get to the point to where we get upset even if we hear a person's name that we're upset with. We become bitter, and it's a long-lasting anger. Wrath and clamor. In other words, don't be angry enough to let yourself go to violence, to wrath, lose your temper, evil speaking. You don't want to become angry and lose your temper and say things that are not right. And of course, clamor. Don't cause a clamor. This is the way I would say that. And these are all examples of unrighteous anger. These are things we want to avoid. But there's one key thing that I noticed as I was studying this, is to kind of sum all this up. What is the main cause or the key to unrighteous anger? Most unrighteous anger is selfish. And it's interesting because we can look at the times we become angry, and many times it's in retaliation for something that we think is unjust, maybe unjustly done to us. The majority of the time we attack the person instead of the sin. And many things, or many examples of anger being selfish is found in everyday life. Like, are we really mad at the person because of what he did? Or are we angry because he embarrassed us in front of our friends? Or are we angry because it made us feel bad about ourselves, not because of the actual thing that was said? And examples of unrighteous anger, of course we talked about bitterness, hatred and revenge. Sometimes we want an eye for an eye. Well, you did this to me, so why shouldn't I do it back or get revenge? We lash out, yell. It can cause broken families, relationships, and sometimes we even get violent, some of us, when we're angry. So these are all things that happen with unrighteous anger. But the main thing we want to know is how to use that anger, or how to have righteous anger. And this is sometimes called righteous indignation. Basically, indignation is just a big fancy word for anger or wrath. So you're actually calling it righteous anger or righteous wrath. And to learn more about this, let's begin in Ephesians chapter 4, and this verse 26 this time. And this will show us something interesting about anger. One of our first clues. And this is chapter 4, verse 26. Be ye angry and sin not. Now that's the first part of the verse. He's saying, be angry and sin not. Paul here is quoting word for word Psalm 4:4. And he says, let not the sun go down upon your wrath. Now, what do you think this means? Don't let the sun go down on your wrath. I think he's saying, don't let it last. Let go of the anger. Don't let a day go by and go to bed being angry at someone, because it causes bitterness, of course. And it's something that's hard for us to get a hold of, and something that's hard to let go once we let it get a stronghold in our life. So basically, our anger should accomplish a goal and then be forgotten. And there's a perfect example of this. The proper use of anger is when Jesus drove the money changers out of the temple. And that's found in Matthew chapter 21. Matthew chapter 21 verse 12. Off the page here. And Jesus went into the temple of God, and cast out all of them that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers, and the seats of them that sold doves. And he said unto them, it is written, my house shall be called the house of prayer, but ye have made it a den of thieves. So, in this story, let's analyze what happened. Jesus went into this temple, and he sees all of these money changers and all these merchants selling items. In another account, I want to say this is in Luke, it talks about, they're selling animals for sacrifice. Don't quote me on that. I'll have to go back and look for this one. But they're selling animals and just things pertaining to the temple. And he becomes angry with them because they've made it more of a merchant house or a den of thieves than anything. And he, in this other account, it talks about how he took cords and drove them out. He drove them out of the temple. And of course he didn't hit them with it. He's just scared them, and they've run out. And the example that I want to use from this is what Jesus did with his anger. Now, remembering that Jesus was both man and God at the same time, that helps us understand the emotions that he was having, the human emotions of anger. And he used his anger to accomplish a good, his goal for good, and then it was forgotten. It was left alone. In another way to say it, he righted the wrong, and he used his anger constructively. And now, I'm not saying to use this as an excuse to go beat people with cords because you're angry, because that's not right. But righteous anger can be used as fuel to do the right thing. Now I'll give you a modern day example. Say the school has taken prayer out of school, or they've removed the Ten Commandments, or many of the issues dealing with schools today, and that makes you angry. So what do? How do we react in a correct and righteous anger towards this problem? Well, the best way to do that, use it to motivate you to start a petition, or gather up the community to go to their next meeting and make your voice be heard at these meetings. Anything like that. Anger can motivate you to do the correct thing, and that's what's important. You want to use your anger to glorify God, not something that's going to be destructive, but constructive. And anger can be very useful, but the downside of this is it can be very dangerous. It puts you in a kind of a delicate situation if you don't learn how to control it and use it correctly. And the best way to do this is both practice and prayer. Pray that the Lord would give you strength to handle your anger better, and put it into practice. The next time that you become angry over something, kind of step back. Take a step back and remember that this anger should be used correctly, or it should be left alone. Because if it's unrighteous anger, this is hurting your witness, this is destroying the good example, and that's things we don't want to do. So, to kind of a simple way that I've found to remember this, since studied this lesson and learned some new things about this, I've set this up in two charts. I've split it down the middle, and on the left side I have righteous anger, 5 things that mean your anger is righteous. And on the right side I have 5 things that's a good example if your anger is sinful. Number 1 for righteous anger is the purpose is to glorify God. And that's where we need to take a good strong look at why we're angry and what we're doing with it. It's short-lived and not bitter. In other words, it's there, it's used, and it's gone. It's unselfish. Number 3, you're not mad because for selfish reasons, because somebody embarrassed you. It's more because of what they did, and you're not angry at the person. Number 4 is it's useful or constructive, not destructive. Number 5 is it's not directed towards the person, but the problem. And I'm sure you've heard the saying, hate the sin, not the sinner. And that applies here. You're mad at the sin, you want to do something about the sin, not the sinner. Because, it doesn't give us a right to enact judgment right then and there on someone because they did something wrong. That's not our place. And if it's sinful anger, these 5 things will show up. It's selfish. It's usually for a reason that you embarrassed me, or you made me feel bad about myself. It's a selfish anger because it's all pertaining to yourself. It's bitter and long-lasting. So if it begins to last on for a couple of days, and you begin to become more angry with the person, then it's time to take a good look at the anger in this case. If it feels like you're losing control, number 3. And number 4, if it's destructive to relationships or violent, we know it's wrong. And number 5, it's directed towards the person, like we talked about before, directed towards the person, not the sin. I hope you enjoyed this study. I know I learned a lot from it. One of our youth group members had actually asked me these questions, and We did a long study on it, and I was very glad to do that, because it taught me something and shed some light on some things I never thought about before. And I have noticed a difference in my anger and how I control it, and I hope it helps you too. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and God bless you.